It's hard to believe that we're only a few months away from the release of Pragmata. This game was revealed all the way back at the end of 2020 during PlayStation's PS5 reveal stream for an intended 2022 release. Capcom then pushed it back to 2023, then once again it was delayed indefinitely for a re-reveal of the game in 2025, confirming that the game would finally be out next year in 2026. For a while there, it felt like Pragmata was never going to release, and it's a game that I've held in high anticipation since the reveal of the PlayStation 5. It caught my eye instantly, being very strange, and initially thinking, oh, okay, this is clearly another Kojima project, only for it to be revealed that this is actually coming from Capcom, which is definitely a breath of fresh air. At the time, it was Capcom's very first new IP in 8 years. Ever since the company got out of their Capcom era, they've been sticking to what they know, what they do best, mainly Resident Evil titles on the shiny new re-engine, which has obviously proved to be a major success. But now that Capcom have re-solidified themselves as being a golden goose developer, we're starting to see a lot of new stuff funnel through from the company. It is crazy to think that next year alone, these guys are dropping Resident Evil 9, Pragmata, The Return to Onimusha, and a Monster Hunter. The redemption arc of this studio needs to be studied. It is one of the most insane studio comebacks within gaming history. And like most of the games that Capcom have released over the past almost 10 years during their comeback tour, Pragmata is shaping up to be yet another fantastic game from the studio. These guys recently dropped a demo over on Steam. It is planned to come to more consoles at some point soon, but for now it remains a PC exclusive to provide players a little taste test of what to expect from this game. The demo is pretty short, with the average runtime only lasting about 15 minutes, but it's enough to give players an idea of what Capcom are trying to do here. Remembering back to when Pragmata's gameplay was initially revealed, I thought to myself, this is interesting. It's not exactly what I was expecting this game to be. It looks honestly a little bizarre, and I'm not sure if I'll actually end up liking this. I was more so expecting this game to purely be along the lines of Resident Evil's third-person shooter formula, and in a way I guess you could say it most definitely is, but there is a slight twist here that makes it a real true breath of fresh air, and quite unique in amongst other third-person shooters. You play as Spaceman Hugh, who's investigating a research facility on the moon, who comes across a child, which is actually an android named Diana. For reasons unknown right now, the two decide to team up to investigate a hostile AI system that's gone rogue, turning all machines, robots, and other androids hostile. So the basic plot setup here is to figure out what went wrong at this research facility and find a way back to Earth, all while we see the relationship between both Hugh and Diana strengthen. In a way, I guess you could say this is kind of The Last of Us set in space, mixed in with a little bit of Dead Space, which is honestly a pretty cool combination. Minus all of the gore and the blood and the aliens and the zombies and stuff like that, it's very much more robots, machines. At this stage, the general synopsis of the game seems interesting enough. There's a good amount of weird and wacky, a decent mystery that lingers. It's pretty generic as far as a sci-fi story goes, but I'm just happy that Capcom are doing something totally new, being a sci-fi title. And I guess you could say that this is Capcom's very own dad simulator, similar to The Last of Us or God of War. But how does the game actually play? Well, for starters, it is a third-person shooter. You're always equipped with a pistol that has infinite ammo, and you've got 3 other additional weapon slots, which you can find weapons lying around in each level. These are determined by a category, so you can only hold one of each weapon category at a time. In the demo, we got to see one of the green weapon category weapons, which is basically an energy net that can hold enemies in place and continually damage them. There is a close-range shotgun type weapon that belongs in the red category. And during your second playthrough of the demo, a door will unlock that gives you access to yet another red category weapon that is a railgun. High damage, but a bit of a charge up time. Hugh is able to sprint, jump, hover, and even dash. Jumping, hovering, and dashing do require stamina, as you can see the gauge down the bottom of the screen. The dashing is primarily used for traversal, but also acting as a dodge within combat. There is even a perfect dodge system that's attached to this. If you dash at the exact moment an enemy attacks, time will briefly slow down for a second. As far as Hugh's gameplay is concerned though, it's just your typical third-person shooter action. It's probably a little bit faster than something like Resident Evil 4, especially because you've got that dash system, which by the way, feels incredibly good to use. The game is very much a Capcom third-person shooter, similar to the Resi third-person shooter games, though it is also very much Dead Space as well in that regard, just a lot cleaner. And that's a good thing. One of my favorite games of this year was Chronos and New Dawn, coming from Blooper Team. I also really enjoyed Callisto Protocol, and the Dead Space remake was tight. So it's a great thing to see more of these types of third-person shooters coming out. But this game actually adds in a puzzle element into its combat system with Diana. Because she's an android, she's got hacking capabilities. When aiming in at an enemy, a grid will appear. You can move across this grid by pressing the symbol button. The idea of hacking here is to connect all of the blue nodes before reaching the green node to finalize the hack. The more blue nodes you connect, the higher amount of hacking damage you'll inflict upon the enemy. And completing a hack against an enemy will cause all of Hugh's guns to deal more damage. You can also find yellow hacking nodes within areas. You can only hold one type of a yellow hack node at a time, and they are automatically applied to a tile during a hack. It's up to you whether or not you want to connect your hack sequence to a yellow node in order to use it. These can apply unique effects. There are only two that can be found within the demo. The first one is a defense down node. Pretty simple stuff. If you connect this in your hack, it means that the enemy will have less defense, meaning you can deal out more damage. Or there's a multi-hack one, meaning when you hack an enemy that's within a group, applying the multi-hack will mean that the hack would be applied to all enemies in the area. So I'm assuming that the full game will have a large variety of these different yellow hack nodes that will do an assortment of different things. Now this system happens all in real time, so while you're doing this hack puzzle, you're also having to move Hugh, shoot, and even dodge. Honestly, it does sound stressful, but it's actually incredibly fun. At the end of the demo, I was craving more of the game just to come across more harder hacks. Most of the hacks that you have in the demo are fairly easy, with some of the stronger enemies only having some tiles there that you can't cross, and you'll have to figure out how to maneuver around them to reach the green square. I imagine that in the later portions of the full game, you'll come across harder enemies that will have more complex hacking puzzles. Like the boss fight in the demo, for example, has a much larger hacking grid compared to regular enemies. It also has a damage node, which if crossed will inflict damage on Hugh. So it's going to be interesting to see just how complex this system becomes. Diana's also got an ultimate attack system as well, known as Overdrive Protocol. There's a ring on the HUD next to the health status, and as you complete hacks, this gauge will fill. Once enough hacks have been completed and the circle has been filled, you can press R3 and L3 for Diana to perform a strong blast attack. I was pretty impressed with this one boss fight that you get to experience in the demo. It's got this dashing attack that you have to move out of the way of, as well as missiles that it shoots from its shoulders, where you have to move out of the way of the targeted locations on the ground. The idea here is this boss has a weak spot on its back, so you're trying to kite around the boss, performing hacks in the meantime to get close enough to it to shoot the canister on its back. But this was a really cool boss fight. I wasn't expecting the boss fights to be, I guess, this adrenaline racing. The most recent trailer also showed us another boss fight that looks like it's taking place on Earth, with Hugh running down the streets while this barrage of lasers is chasing him. He then jumps off a platform and tries to shoot the weak spots while he's hovering in mid-air. Honestly, wasn't really expecting too much from the boss fights and really even the combat system of this game, but with it all coming together, this provides for a really unique take on a third-person shooter. I think it's fucking awesome. Also, when bosses reach a certain damage threshold, you can press R2 to perform a unique special attack. It's quite hard to say what we can expect from the level design of this game. I'm going to assume that it is pretty linear, as the demo is taking place through a section of the research facility, and you're pretty much just walking down hallways, kind of jumping up on platforms and trying to activate switches to open a door or an elevator, for example. It's all pretty typical stuff that you'd come to expect from a game like Dead Space. Very much the same here. Though, because of the jump, hover, and dash system, it means that verticality can be further implemented into the level design of this game, which keeps things interesting. You can find openable crates and chests in the environment that contain the currency of this game that can be used to upgrade Hugh's suit, known as Lunar Filament. This is also dropped from enemies as well. Escape hatches are the game's checkpoints, though in the full game you'll be able to use these to send yourself back to the shelter, a type of base of operations. There you'll be able to use your Lunar Filament to upgrade your gear or create new hacking nodes, weapons, and attachments. You can also expect to come across text dump collectibles and holo recordings that provide more information on the world. I'm expecting the environments of this game though to be quite diverse. While it does have the, typical ultra clean and shiny space station type level design to it, I believe that the Lunar Filament and the AI system known as Delphi Corporation is actually capable of creating these virtual reality spaces. And so that Earth type New York looking environment that we've seen in previous footage might not actually be taking place on Earth. And in fact, there's also another gameplay clip here that shows us both Hugh and Diana in a sort of city environment, but it looks like it's more of a simulation than an actual physical location. If I'm right about this, it means that the game can offer a bunch of really unique different level environments. And although it seems like the whole game is going to take place on the moon within a space station, because of the simulation aspect, it means that the game isn't just confined to this one space station type environment. One last thing I want to mention here is I do like the back and forth between Hugh and Diana. We got a little taste test of that in the demo, but there is this one section during your second playthrough of the demo. There are a few differences, and one is the door that I mentioned that gives you access to a new gun. If you go in there, there's this unique piece of dialogue where Hugh's talking about going back to Earth, but Diana breaks the fourth wall and mentions that, well, you won't be doing that now because you're in the demo.
How the heck am I gonna get back to Earth?
Hugh, I don't think you can get home from here. Because this is just the demo.
Or there's this wholesome moment where Hugh teaches Diana what a high five is.
Yeah, baby. We did it! This is how we say, good job.
So I'm excited to see more of this dynamic. I think that these two characters are going to be a highlight of the game for sure. Otherwise, I think that Capcom have something really special here. While I know that most people have their eyes set on both Resident Evil 9 and Onimusha, and personally I can't wait for both of them, I think, honestly, Pragmata is going to be just as good as those games. I hope that enough people end up buying this and enjoying this to warrant this turning into something that sticks around for Capcom, because it isn't all too often that these guys decide to make something entirely new. But the demo has confirmed, for me at least, that I will absolutely be picking this up day one. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to slippity slap that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Big shout out to my wonderful patrons and YouTube members. I appreciate your support. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.